The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast. You belong over here, my love. There we go. And you belong over here. Now everyone's where they should be. Damn you, Hollywood! And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Well, now that Mark's OCD has been sated for at least a few more moments.
Just a moment.
Sorry, I was a few minutes late. I'm currently home alone, and the dogs decided they just couldn't wait any longer, and they needed to go out.
Did you say you were
it
home
happens.
alone?
Look, I'm dealing. There's some pretty serious wind going on around here, and trees have started losing branches. So if I suddenly cut out, there's a non-trivial chance it's a power outage.
Did you set traps in case the wet bandits tried to, invade your house?
I don't need traps. I've got a Labrador Retriever.
I don't want to talk to you anymore. Robert.
The correct response is you're not afraid of the wet bandits. It's the sticky bandits you have to beware of.
I've known Alexis for like 100 years, and if there's one consistent thing about Alexis is that if I pitch it to her, she will bobble the ball into the audience every single time, and then yell at me for not pitching it to her right. And I'm just like, I literally handed it to you, and you go like, yes, but footballs are made of,
Do you even want me on the show tonight, Mark? I mean, I could go. I have more cleaning to do.
What are we doing tonight, Robert?
We're probably not going to be here very long, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. As tends to happen with movies that we just are like generally positive on, but nothing specific. Tonight, we have Mark, myself, you heard Alexis. We also have joining us Zachary Strobel. So, hi, Zach.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You had your chance to get out. This is your life now.
No, I'm top of this rectangle now.
Hey, come on. Tonight, he and I did a great review of Garfield. Come on.
Yes, you did.
That was like Zach's best review yet, that review of Garfield. I was mighty impressed.
And tonight, we are reviewing the true savior of the summer movie series, of the summer.
Yeah, who knew?
None of us called this one as the movie that was going to like actually invigorate the summer blockbuster season, but Pixar's sequel to a 8-year-old movie now?
9.
I was going to say 10, but that felt wrong. We have Inside Out 2.
Yes. Inside Out 2 is a 2024 American animated coming-of-age film produced by Pixar Animation Studios for Walt Disney Pictures. It is the sequel to Inside Out 2015, 9 years ago. It was directed by Kelsey Mann in his feature directorial debut and produced by Mark Nielsen from a screenplay written by Mann and LeFauve and Dave Holstein in a story conceived by Mann and LeFauve. The film stars Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith, Lewis Black, Diane Lane, Kyle MacLachlan, reprising their roles from the first film with Maya Hawke, Kensington Tallman, Tony Hale, Liza Lapira, I don't know who any of these people are, Ayo Edebiri, Lilimar, Grace Liu, and other people. Oh, and Paul Walter Hauser joining the cast. And it tells the story of Riley's emotions as they find themselves joined by new emotions that want to take over Riley's head. It premiered at the El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles on June 10th and was released in the U.S. on June 14th. It received mostly positive reviews from critics and has grossed almost $300 million worldwide. Yeesh. It has the second biggest opening day debut for an animated film domestically behind Pixar's Incredibles 2 in 2018 and is the 8th highest grossing film of 2024. Yeah.
After just its opening weekend.
What kills me about that is, like I said, when we were talking about the films of this summer, we were like, okay, maybe Furiosa, maybe The Fall Guy, and we just maybe Despicable Me 4, probably, because those are always $1 billion movies. We were like,
Clone
this
Wolverine, yeah. It's just like
Yeah,
I don't think any of us predicted this one.
not a single one of us were like, oh yeah. Like I think back when Disney announced Sequel Mania to try to like save that flailing studio, like, we're doing Toy Story 5 and we're going to Ohio. Yeah.
No one cares about it. Toy Story 5 is the one that's going to fail miserably.
And Moana 2, like when they were doing the Howard Dean thing, we were just like, oh, Inside Out 2, why? And then Chris Bailey joined a terrorist organization because he was like, oh my God, Inside Out's the movie that killed Pixar. We're like, all right, take it easy.
No, Cars 2 was the movie that killed Pixar.
Hang on, stop.
Better.
Cars 2 is the creatively bankrupt film that they produced. Inside Out represents the apex of quality filmmaking with good family appeal, but no staying power in the market.
His argument was the following. If we're going to talk about it, let's give credit where credit's due. Chris's thing was kind of what the original philosophy behind Marvel Studios was, make it for the boys, make it toyetic, et cetera, et cetera. And so his whole thing was with Inside Out was there was no good merchandise to be had. Like, these did not have action figures that could be played with. These things did not have good toys. There was something about Inside Out which I think spoke intellectually to its audience, and it definitely reached kids to one degree or another, as well as adults. But to your point about like no staying power, it couldn't find itself in the marketplace of merchandise.
There was nothing aftermarket. Like, it hit, was a very successful film. Everyone loved it, made a lot of money. Like, you couldn't have asked for anything better out of it in that respect. But it never found its second life. It never had, the plushies or the figures or a lot of that stuff that let the IP retain, revenue churn.
Well, I mean, neither did like Up or Ratatouille, but those are still classics.
I think the only film series from Pixar that actually did well financially, review-wise, and market-wise is the Toy Story franchise.
Well, Toy Story did, Cars did. We're going on the way back.
I said market-wise and review-wise. Cars has one well-reviewed movie in its franchise. Doesn't count.
3 did okay.
I think if you're going with the Bailey argument, I gotta watch my hands tonight. I'm in a different frame. The thing. I think his point was, if you look at all the various Pixar movies, which one used the phrase aftermarket? Which one had the best aftermarket value? Toy Story had a ton of merchandise
and video games.
And yes, that would be part of merchandise.
And there's the props.
The Dory / Nemo stuff had plenty of merchandise.
Nemo did well.
They sold a million plush Nemos, a million of them.
I want to say the Incredible stuff sold toys. Obviously, Cars did. Cars was probably like the most toyetic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they just basically took the Hot Wheels plan of attack and just, what's the phrase, like, okay, you can copy my homework, but don't make it too obvious.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Brave, to some extent. I mean, they definitely sold a lot of bows and arrows. But
there was a lot of dolls of Merida.
But I think one of the arguments that he made, and it's so funny because now I'm in the position like I am with like my dad, where I have to now defend a position I don't actually have, because me and Bailey got into this huge argument about the success of. I mean, Robert and I reviewed the movie when it came out for Damn You Hollywood. It's up in the archives now. I re-aired it a few years ago when I started going back through all my Blog Talk Radio stuff, and we talked pretty at length about how well, there was some issues with it here or there, but we talked at length about how much it affected us emotionally. So back in our chat, when we were talking about where did it all go wrong for Pixar, and Bailey's like, you have to go all the way back to Inside Out. His whole thing was, it's great that it touched you guys, and it's great that it's been well received, and it's, for a kids movie, it's pretty intellectual. I think they had like mental health people working on that film in order like to develop the script and everything. Like, they really went all in on it. But his whole thing was, it's about there that Pixar starts moving away from its intended audience and starts making more higher end prestige, boutique kind of animated films, which we liked and raved about. But his was like, okay, but how do you sell this to kids? Like, how do you sell toy? How do you take a movie like Soul? Soul is probably a great example of this.
Soul's a beautiful movie, but you can't get an 8-year-old to sit through it.
We watched that, I believe, around the Christmas-ish that it came out, which I think was at the end of 2020? Yeah.
Or 21. But I think it was 2020.
I would say that debuted during the shutdown. And I remember because that was a movie that my family came over, because I'm like the only person in this immediate area with Disney Plus. And they all came over. It's like during the shutdown, they came over to my place to watch Wonder Woman 1984, Soul, and Hamilton.
Well, 1 out of 3 is not great.
Somebody double check that for me, but I'm 90% certain that came out around the Christmas season of 2020.
Came out on Christmas Day. I remember.
Of 2020?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you say shutdown, I mean, the movie theaters weren't really open yet. They were here in Florida, but our shutdown lasted all of 5 minutes, and we were like, all right, open up Disney World. Let's go. Put your mask on. But for the rest of the known universe, stuff was still shut down. And in terms of keeping this conversation simple, most studios weren't releasing anything to theaters at this point. You had the occasional like Tenet or New Mutant or stuff like that. But I want to say with Soul, because Soul came right after Onward. Onward hit the theaters, and then we went into the lockdown.
Yeah, Onward was the last wide release. It was the last thing we reviewed, certainly before the lockdowns went into effect.
So then Soul goes right to Disney Plus, and that began. And these poor bastards at Pixar are like, we're only going to do this once, right? Sure. Like next 5 movies go straight to Disney.
The next 3 years of Pixar stuff, just.
And they were just like, you promised they were like a battered housewife. They were like, you promised this time we're going to go to theaters with Turning Red? Sure we are. Off to Disney Plus you go. But his argument with like Soul is probably the best example of as you said, it was a beautiful film and it was very intellectual and it hit you right in the feels and you couldn't sell a single toy, not a one. Of what could you possibly sell from that movie? A
talking cat.
Maybe.
Well, they missed their chance to sell the talking cat for Lightyear, so someone's got to make a toy of a talking cat.
I think after Soul was then, what's the name? Luca. There's an argument to be made that maybe Luca could be toyetic, but nah.
Luca has the aesthetics of a lot of good toy work, but good toy work is actually like marrying the movie with a good visual.
Right.
And Luca absolutely has the coloring and the overall design aesthetic of good toys. You watch Luca, it looks very much like you should be selling toy kits of this.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody did because Luca's not a kid's movie. Despite looking like one, it's really not. Again, it's not aimed at the 8 to 12-year-olds.
If you'll remember, we had my kids on for that one, and they were both like, yeah, it was entertaining, it was colorful, it was fun, but even back then, I remember Jonas had, for as young as he had some stuff to say about it. So this is 2021, which would have made him 7-ish. And I remember he definitely had some thoughts about it. And, his sister was kind of like, it was nice, it was fine. So it didn't really hit them. And then I think we talked about it was kind of a Boys of Summer movie, and there aren't too many movies like this. And
also true.
But again, you used the phrase staying power before, and I'm not entirely sure it had any. And then go ahead.
The real problem that Pixar ran into, and this is, you can point to Soul as like the last really big triumphant Pixar movie. It didn't do a lot of aftermarket business, but that was the last one for a while that was like, if you watched that movie, you kind of loved it because it's beautiful. But Onward didn't do great before that. Much as I enjoyed Onward, and it absolutely turned me into a weepy mess in the theater for a number of reasons. But after Soul, that's when we get Luca, we get Turning Red, we get Lightyear, we get
Elemental.
Elemental, which
let's
did
not fast forward through those, because each one of those, and I think we actually talked about this with Elemental, Turning Red pissed a lot of people off. So not only, I mean, because maybe you have toys with the red panda and all that. I mean, like, if
it's a stretch though. It's a real stretch.
If I'm sitting at the board table and somebody brings me a model of like a toy red panda from Turning Red, and like, this is what we're gonna sell, I'm like, yeah, green light that movie, go. Like, that should have been a win. And then when I, then 3 months later, when I'm walking through the studio and I'm like, what are you working on? Turning Red. Oh, the Red Panda movie. Hey, I forgot to ask, what is this about? It's about a girl in her period. Oh, for fuck's sake. And then, then parents like burning down Pixar Studios. Like, I don't want to show this shit to their kids. And then you pile on top of that was another one that was supposed to be like Pixar's return to the theater, and it went right to Disney Plus again. Zachary, about to say something?
The fact that the first thing they sent to the theater after this prolonged period of we're not getting there was Lightyear.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that. Go ahead, Zach.
So I actually have this friend. He illustrated one of my books. He's my friend Michael. He's a really cool guy. He is like the biggest Inside Out fan, and I mean, he has like bed sheets of it, like toys. Those were, but I think he might have got it like when the movie first came out, though. But those do exist.
I mean, we're talking very broad terms, and I keep going back to the point Chris was making was, did stuff exist? Yes, and because I pointed that out to him. Like, there was a game that was floating around for a while that had like little tokens that you put on a stand, and then they would be in the game for you. And there was Inside Out stuff of that. There were books, there were T-shirts. I mean, there was stuff. But was
I'm
there
actually
stuff?
pulling up Amazon now. Let's see if we can find what they have for Inside. Okay, so we have little golden books, sticker books. Let's see here. We have a T-shirt. We have a poster. A lot of T-shirts. A lot of step into reading books.
Sure.
Junior novelization. Funko Pops, of course. This is cute. It's a little backpack with a little spinny wheel on it, so you can like spin. It's like, today I feel, and you spin to which emotion you want. That's actually quite adorable.
Everyone has this. That's sad.
The problem was that it didn't sell a whole lot, and
right. I'm sure everyone has an anecdote of someone, buying a this or that here or there. But when Chris talks merchandise, he's talking about, millions of dollars. Like, we're talking like Star Wars Kenner in like the early 80s, that kind of a thing. Or again, Toy Story.
Pixar, ultimately, Pixar had to go into damage control, especially after Lightyear, which was.
Yeah. So all right, listen, that period movie got us nowhere. What do you got for us now? Okay, it's Toy Story spinoff. Oh, good. This made $1 billion.
I guarantee you that's as far as that pitch got. They said Toy Story spinoff. Executive went, "Oh, thank you for going to a franchise we know makes money.
Here's $200 million. Go make us $1 billion hit."
I can just imagine be like, "Wait, I haven't told you what the movie's about. Don't care. Get making it."
Yeah, and then they're in the room going, "He gave us $200 million to do whatever, just as long as it's a Toy Story spinoff." Yeah. So we're gonna do this about Buzz Lightyear. Yeah. All right, what are we gonna do with it? We're gonna make it so gay.
It's not. Hang on. You can level that. There's complaints we leveled at Lightyear. It was not overly gay.
No, it's not.
No, it was overly boring.
It was terrible.
There was a lot wrong with it, but again, I'm again using broad strokes to come up with the complaints for these things, and so it's just funny. And to kind of wrap up this discussion, we can move into the movie now. It's funny to me because, again, Chris's whole thing was they stopped making broad, family-friendly, toyetic movies for mass audiences, and they went into prestige pictures as if that audience was going to follow them.
Yeah.
And then even with the prestige pictures, they weren't making anything that had any kind of mass appeal to it. It was like, Jesus Christ, they were making the kinds of movies that like Alexis talks about on her Oscar show, which is great and everything. And I don't want to put down good filmmaking, but when you're like, and sell toys, and you're not doing
hang on. When if you were to make Luca live action,
yeah,
and do it for $20 to $50 million, indie budget, Fellini inspired coming of age movie,
right?
And it's kind of a hit on the critical circuit, and you do it as a prestige thing, and some streaming service picks it up to cover your bases, and people think fairly highly of it. If you're spending $150 million because this is all animated,
Right.
this is a poor use of resources. So in the story of Pixar, Lightyear is like, that's the low point. That is the winter of our discontent. That is the people are throwing themselves out the window.
There is no. It is that scene in Airplane with a shirtless woman runs in front of the camera. The whole thing. And then they kind of had a big. It's funny. Elemental was probably a really good movie to set up the success of Inside Out 2. Is sort of my final comment here, because everyone was kind of like, no more your gay period prestige gay cowboys eating pudding cartoon movies. We're not taking you kids to this.
They took everyone from Pixar who was doing that and gave them Star Wars shows, and now that's doing very poorly.
My point is, like, everyone. So like 20 people go to see Elemental. They're just like, yeah, it's not like the last 3 movies. It's fine. You can actually take your kids to this one. It'll be all right. And then they did. And then like word got out over time. I think Alexis can speak well to this too. Is over the months, Elemental slowly built up a pretty good following and a pretty nice take at the ticket counter.
It did. It was a slow but gradual rise. Not to mention the overseas numbers really helped.
Mm-hmm.
So
based entirely on word of mouth.
Oh, very much so.
Review on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, our review for that did record numbers. We hit double digits, I think.
triple digits, baby. All right.
We haven't hit triple digits since your kids did a commentary for the Tom and Jerry movie.
Yeah, Furiosa did. I mean, depending on what you were counting as triple digits here, Furiosa did over 100. That would be triple. All right.
That's true. All right. So anyway, that'll lead us to Inside Out 2. So directive came to finish the backstory. The executive directive came down to Pixar, like, okay, we're doing all the gay stuff with Star Wars now. So we want you guys to go back to broad appeal. Please make them sequels if at all possible. And
more Frozen, more Zootopia, more Inside Out, because we know they actually make us money, and we can't take any more gambles.
I can tell you how that meeting went. That meeting started off with they dimmed the lights and they put on a video of a live Journey concert, and like, hey, did you notice one thing about this band Journey? Yeah, they played all the hits. You're Journey now. You're doing any way you want it. That's all you're doing.
So this is when they announced, hey, we're going to do Toy Story 5, and that's a franchise you already murdered. So I think that's a poor idea, but we'll see.
I was going to say, I will admit that I've watched Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 a lot. Or at least I often have it on Disney Plus in the background when I'm working. Has anyone else here watched Toy Story 4 since we reviewed it?
Not even a little bit. I try to forget that it exists.
Okay, Zach, you have.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Well, Zach tries to sort out his life choices. Robert, tell us about this movie.
So we arrive at Inside Out 2, and we're a few years removed from the end of the first one. Riley was 11 in the first one. She
was 12. This 1 year. I checked. It's 1 year.
Oh, we're only 1 year removed?
Only 1 year removed.
Okay.
And it got a lot better in
one. No, she's 13 now. She starts at 11 in the first one. She turns 12 during the first movie, if memory serves. She's 13 here, and life inside the brain of a 13-year-old girl is hectic, is the big takeaway from this. Mark, I imagine
getting hectic, and it never slows down.
I imagine Mark watched this with great empathy.
And then you meet these assholes who pick at you for no reason. You threaten to walk off a podcast. Life sucks to be a woman.
Yes, it does.
So we're a little bit further removed. Teenage years are about to begin.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the parents are preparing the box.
Fucking movie. Sorry, I know we're not supposed to interrupt you, and I yell at Alexis and beat her every time she does this, but I can't help it. That alarm with the puberty thing, and she's like, back in the mind! It comes back up again. I was like, oh, we have all been there.
I can tell you the biggest laugh I had at this movie is the very end, or like our sort of post-credit scene when they're all around the dinner table. And I asked the teenager, "How was your trip?" And the emotions are all freaking out. Like, what do? We did so many things, and some of them were so not good. And ennui comes in and is just like, I got this. It was good. And then we flash to the inside of the mom's head, and her anxiety remanifests. Like, what's going? And they eventually calm her down and just go, "Welcome back, anxiety. Yes, we have a teenager."
That's great.
So that popped me. But so now Riley's a teenager, and this complicates things. And our new big thing in the world, inside the mechanical world of headquarters, inside of Riley, is the sense of self, which is an amalgamation of different lessons and different memories, and it's sort of conglomerated. And we have a very wholesome snowflake design, and I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean it's big old circular snowflake. And the emotions are trying to keep everything's kind of going okay, and then the puberty alarm goes off.
Still the best gag of the movie.
They try to get rid of it, but then the big scene from the trailer shows up, and they wreck things, and the new emotions show up. Because now we have anxiety and embarrassment and jealousy and ennui or boredom / nihilism.
I think it was envy, not quite jealousy. I mean, I specifically
it was, but
okay, envy works. Yeah. And there's immediately conflict between old emotions and new emotions. New management has conflict with old management, like you do. And anxiety kind of takes over, as it is wont to do. And Riley is playing hockey and gets invited to a hockey camp for the high school that she's going to be attending. Because hockey's a big deal in San Francisco, apparently. Sorry, my one gripe. That's the only gripe I have.
Like in Southern California, it's karate, and in Northern California, it's hockey. Move this on.
Fair enough.
Look, somebody said don't make it volleyball because everyone will complain about us drawing Riley in short shorts, okay? They wanted something with her.
We can't have an entire movie full of 13-year-old bouncing boobs. No volleyball. None. So hockey it is. Baggy clothing. Let's go.
Well, at least it made sense in the first one. She's from Minnesota. That everybody plays hockey. But anyway. So anxiety stages a coup d'etat. Takes over the head. And gets embarrassment, who is a big bubblegum monster. He's pink, is the point there. Very pink. They take the original emotions, they stick them in a jar, they punch holes in it because they're not inhumane, and they try to throw it in the vault, where all the dark secrets are kept.
Just like the Disney Vault.
You're not wrong.
They try to put it right next to Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby.
Because Song of the South, please, we pretend this doesn't exist.
Yep.
Damn it, you stole my joke.
You're welcome.
So they are locked in the vault, and in this vault is the Vault of Secrets. Now, normally putting emotions as secrets, like, oh no, I secretly experience emotion. That's not a good thing. These are not Vulcans. But in this Vault of Secrets, we find a few people to help out. We have the avatar from a preschool show, similar to something like Blue's Clues. Totally original creation, but similar. And the secret is Riley still likes watching this very, very infantile show. We find the video game character she harbors a secret crush on, who's also a terrible character in his game, just mechanically unsound. And the big dark secret that is unrevealed and locks itself back in the vault. Actually, when we're done, just says later.
I did absolutely love that we had different animation styles for these secrets. The children's character, Bluefy or something like that, was done.
It was like a bluey thing.
Yeah, it's done clearly more of like a limited flash animation.
Yeah.
The video game character was incredibly pixelated. So it looked like something from a very early Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, and the dark secret looked like fucking Pete from Mickey's Christmas Carol.
So, with the help of Pouchy, who is the magical bag of holding for our preschool show, they get dynamite and they blow up the vault. They get out. They manage to escape. And now the real problem that I skipped over, but the real problem is anxiety was trying to plan for the future, because it's one of the things anxiety is good for. You be forward thinking, you calculate possibilities. And the other emotions are very bad at this. So they're like, no, Riley is who she is and she's not going to change. And anxiety goes, this is not going well for us. So takes the sense of self, yanks it out of its pedestal, and ejects it to the back of the mind where Joy has been throwing all the bad memories. Because who needs bad memories?
Don't forget, there's the fact that Riley has just found out her two closest friends they're going to be sent to a different high school. So anxiety is not only talking about planning for the future, but it's also the fact that Riley's about to start high school without any friends, and anxiety is saying
we need a new support network because what we have is not going to be adequate. Yeah,
and if you've ever transferred or found out that your friends are going to be transferred, when I started high school, a new high school had just been built. And there was actually a lot of concern from families about whether or not their kids were going to be sent to one school or the other. Because before we had only had one high school in the district, and now there's this other one. And there's a lot of concern about whether or not kids are going to get to go with the people they've grown up with.
There's a conversation right now about next year, not this coming school year, but the school year after, about whether or not we're going to let the kids don't go to school in their home school district. They go to school where their grandparents live, which is also where Melissa teaches. And a question came up of, well, should they come back to their home area where our house is, or should we try to keep them up there? And without getting into the other personal specifics, there's a lot of balls in the air with these decisions. And Jonas, being me and, a 10-year-old going on 65, goes, yeah, I could give a fuck less. I don't care where I go to school. Just wherever I go, I'll be fine. I'll make friends. It'll be fine. And then there's my daughter, to your point, Alexis, who's just like, no, you don't understand. All my friends are going to this high school. I want to go to this high school. And we're like, you'll make new friends. And she blew up, and it was orange smoke everywhere.
Trust me, I went through that. My parents wanted us to move briefly when I was I can't even remember what year it was. And tell your daughter, I went through the same thing. I went absolutely nuts. We didn't end up moving because we found out that the HOA in that area was a nightmare. But I was exactly like, no, you can't separate me from my friends.
So that's kind of the backdrop as we go to this hockey camp. And anxiety has now taken over everything and thrown away the sense of self, which was kind of just, I'm a good person who does good things. Yay. And anxiety starts building a new sense of self that is built around nothing but anxiety. This is going to go very poorly. Spoiler alert. So our core emotions have escaped, and they're like, okay, we got to get Riley's actual sense of self. We'll get her back to normal. But we got to go all the way to the back of the mind to get it. So they send Sadness back to headquarters to make sure they can recall things from back there when it's all said and done, because the mechanism's in play. And because Sadness is kind of the least conspicuous of them, believe it or not. So Sadness is able to head up there. And they start off on their big journey. They discover that anxiety has taken over the imagination section of everything and is just using it to
do worst case scenarioville.
Does nothing but generate the worst case scenarios. And I never suffered from anxiety or major anxiety with my depression, but boy, can I calculate the worst case scenario very, very easily. So that I understood. And Joy leads the workers' revolution because down with management, at least when you're not management anymore. They ultimately are able to get, long story short, because they get all the way to the back of the mind where there's this pile of bad emotions. There's some fun gags along the way. We can talk about some of those specifically. While at the camp, Riley is trying to make friends with the members of the high school hockey team. She's trying to get on that group as a freshman, and she's trying to navigate making new friends and being riddled with anxiety and trying to figure all this stuff out. So there's a lot of pressure there. My old friends, my new friends, how's this gonna play out? And my brother chiming in with the only counter to anxiety is ADD, because that is his particular ailment. And they do ultimately start to get recalled. Anxiety stops that, and now Riley's new anxiety-riddled personality sense of self has shown up, and it is nothing but I'm not good enough, because when all you have is anxiety, this is all you have. and she's now playing in the hockey game and the big scrimmage at the end of the 3 days and trying to prove herself, and it's going she's performing well enough purely athletically, but she's freaking out and not being a good teammate and cross-checks her best friend into next week. And
anyone else yell nice hit besides me in the theater?
I was tempted. Then she gets told by the coach, sit down. Take a minute, you're losing it.
Can I real quick? So when I was in high school, so I got picked on a fair amount in high school, and I was actually really telling my girlfriend this. I was taught at a very young age never throw the first punch. So I always, so I would get like verbally abused, and then I would I wish someone fucking would, and it would get like real close to physical where I could fucking haul off and knock someone's head off, and then they would stop because I've kind of always been this size with this resting bitch face. So no one pushed me that far, or when they did, they caught a beating and word got out. So just years of this sort of thing between junior high and high school. And I had heard in Major League Baseball, I want to stress that, when you are running to home plate, you can charge the catcher and try to knock the ball out of his hand and get yourself safe. And this is gym class, and we're playing softball, and I'm hearing myself go, hey, I can charge the catcher. Turns out I don't really like the catcher all that much, nor anyone in my gym class. I'm going to knock the fuck out of this guy. Mind you, this is my, I think, senior year of high school, and I'd been in mosh pits for the last 2 years. I ran at home plate.
You've already got a low center of gravity. I don't mean that as an insult. Like, you're just built that way.
I fucking hit this kid into next week, and he landed an inside out too. Next to the girl on the ice. And there was a palpable, like gasp from everybody else in the gym class. And my teacher literally was like, because this is what prompted it, what you said. He just sort of looks at me and he goes, sit down. I trottled off, very pleased with myself. And as they picked up Craig Fight's handler's limbs that had exploded into several parts, he had wondered what he ever did to me. And then I gave him a list.
That's fair.
Moving on.
Don't keep the list. The list is bad for you.
Yeah.
So as Riley sits in the penalty box, anxiety starts freaking out because now everything's going sideways. And they've destroyed the recall mechanism. So the only thing our other group can do now is blow up a ledge and then ride the wave of all these negative memories that they've just thrown in the back of their head through the stream of consciousness into the big pool under headquarters where your personality is formed, and really hope that all the bad memories don't create bad beliefs. So we go through this. This plan is successful. They make it back to headquarters. Anxiety's losing it. Big old orange tornado. Joy kind of calms her down eventually. And they break off the anxiety sense of self. They try to put the new one in, and it's still not working. It's not.
You mean the old one?
Yeah, they put the old one in, and it's not working. It's like it's trying to tell yourself I'm a good person after you've had an anxiety attack or in the middle of one, and that is a poor solution to that kind of self-talk. Yeah, you can't do it that way. So Joy realizes that, okay, you're growing, you're becoming multifaceted, you're no longer just this. Breaks away the old personality and allows a new one to form that is constantly evolving, touches on all the major emotions, and is slightly more actualized.
Combines the good memories with the bad memories.
And Riley makes up with her friends, wants Joy to take over the console as she plays out the last of the scrimmage. Then she moves on to high school, keeps in somewhat contact with her old friends, and we end on the, did she make the team or not? But she has already decided that if she doesn't this year, that's not the end of the world. There is next year, and she's going to be okay. And that's where we end that.
All right, before we go to Zach and then Alexis and then back to me again, I do want to talk about the one personal experience for watching this. Brought Jonas 10, Trey 12, Lily 13 to this movie. And the two boys. Now, I'm just going to say this. When Robert and I reviewed the first one, I talked about, I didn't quite get to Coco level. but I, as Robert and I talked about, cried pretty hard at the end of Inside Out. Like, for whatever reason, that
It's
movie
up there.
hit me really hard. And I would have to go back and watch it again. I re-listened to the podcast and I heard myself talk about it. The stuff with the clown that disappears, that the
Imaginary friend.
the imaginary friend, yeah, disappearing, and
that's a punch in the guts.
yeah, there was a lot.
Did you see that Joy had a figure of that imaginary friend that she had made on her bedside table?
Yeah, so
That was
there was a lot about that movie that hit me personally, and I had a real emotional outburst at the end of it. And this one didn't come. I mean, I got a little teary-eyed towards the end, but this one didn't nearly come close. And I'm going to talk about that when I get to the craft review. That for me, at least personally, there's a reason why I'm bringing that up. This one did not reach me the way the first one did, not even close. The two boys were like, it was fine. It was their reaction. Go ahead.
For the record, you and I are on the same page there. Like,
okay.
And I'll talk about it when I get to it. But
as a contrast, and this is why I'm bringing this up, and I'm bowling over everyone. My 13-year-old mopey teen, this was her movie. Okay, between this and I saw the TV glow. Like, this is the year of Lily as a film person. Because I would look over occasionally at her, especially during the stuff with anxiety, kind of see how she was doing. And like, we've all, as film people, we've all had these moments where a film speaks to us personally. Like, you really do see yourself back on screen reflected at you, and you're going, finally, someone hears me. I'm not alone in the world. That was Lily's takeaway from this movie. She was just like, when the movie is talking about your entire brain being run by that one emotion, and that one emotion is anxiety, my God, that's my daily struggle. And I was like, okay, it's definitely one of those where it reminds you that not every movie is going to reach everybody the same, but we should all have our movies. And for this was hers. This, the character of Riley and the concept of being ruled by one's anxiety really spoke to her. And she was like, I loved this movie. It was fantastic. I cried throughout it. And I was like, okay, good for you, Lil. So, Zach, let out your inner 13-year-old girl and go.
About time.
This is my moment.
Well, first of all, I really what I like about this movie and the original is it's a very I think it's really clever because we've had movies before where like people have been inside our heads. We could go on forever about that, but I really like the way this movie like takes it one step further, like obviously, but the way it's executed, the way it like has like it's very colorful. It has like it takes a really complicated ideas but makes it really simple.
Yeah.
For kids to understand like what's going on and like what they feel and stuff. Also the way like I love the designs, like the way everyone looks, like the way they move, like Joy moves really fast and Anger moves more stubby but I really like the visual language and the animation in it. And someone who does actually work with children, like I can understand, like especially on the first one. The only issue I had about this movie is, and I'm glad your daughter was able to like understand and like felt that, but I feel like it doesn't have as much broad appeal because I'm sure the 5-year-old kids that are watching this, I mean it's PG, but that doesn't mean anything anymore. Yeah. I don't know if it's like, is that gonna happen? Like, why is he freaking out? Saying, like,
scare the fuck out of a bunch of 5-year-olds in the audience.
I know, right? So that's my biggest fear. But honestly, I really like this movie because even though it did tackle big subjects, it was still fun. It was still funny. I like that it was adventurous. The fact that that everyone got more screen time than the last one, and especially with the characters. I felt it was like a good amount of screen time. Like I think putting them like anger and fear and disgust like on the journey as well made it really good. I think that was a good touch. The only other thing is like I've actually like I'm glad it's touched so many people. I actually I think in 2019, I think it was before COVID. I actually went to Louis Black's show. I did a show in Tucson. I actually got to meet him after the show, and I got his autograph, which I can't find. But I told him like I loved you in Inside Out, and he just like stared at me for a second, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that was like one of my favorites."
Him.
But the thing is also like, but yeah, I thought it was a good movie. And it was crowded too. So normally I don't like seeing movies that are crowded, but I mean, in this case, it's a good thing because the movie's making so much money.
Mm-hmm.
Kids were laughing. It was a lot funnier. Parents were on their phones. It was great.
We saw it on a Thursday. I don't remember how full the theater was. But it had a decent sized audience for a Thursday preview. Alexis, what'd you think of the movie?
Do you want me to get on my soapbox now or later?
Sorry.
No. Why don't you stick to the craft stuff and then we'll double back and talk about mental illness.
Fair enough. Very impressed. As far as the voice acting goes, it actually, I knew that the voices of fear and disgust had been replaced, but they sounded so much like the original voice actors. I genuinely couldn't tell.
You know what's hilarious about that is I kept wondering if that was still Lewis Black because he's significantly older and he was 100 when he did the first one. Like Lewis Black, when he first started showing up in the Daily Show, and I started seeing him on like Comedy Central, he was at that time was still doing like stand up sitting down, and like pulling the rest of his hair out. And I'm like, it's 20 years later. He has got Lewis Black is 1,000,000 years old now. And it didn't sound, I had to keep checking to make sure that was really him. So it's funny to hear you say that because like that did not sound like Lewis Black to me.
Well, he was one of the returning. Yeah, it was. Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling who got replaced, supposedly because of a pay dispute.
In both cases.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, frankly, for giving us Velma, Mindy Kaling needs to be banished from all conscious thought.
I'd banish her from the land of the living, but, that's just me.
Why am I in a floating LP?
This movie tackled a lot of really heavy stuff. I greatly enjoyed it. I mentioned earlier how much I loved the different styles of animation on the characters in the vault with the secrets, even with the pile of dynamite at the end, all coming from oh my god, the scene where Anger just starts digging through Pouchy.
Nothing like watching that scene with two horny like young boys who were laughing their ass off at that, and my son trying to keep the dirty jokes to himself. I'm like, just shut up, Jonas. Shut up, Jonas.
Yeah, you don't need to get the looks that your 10-year-old saying that kind of stuff is going to give you.
Yeah, no, not that particular day.
But no, that like that all the things with Pouchy just killed me. I thought that was great. Again, I have lived through the experience of being a teenage girl. A lot of the stuff did resonate with me. The whole sarcasm thing. I saw this movie with my aunt.
It can go for miles. Run, save yourself.
I looked over at my aunt. I'm like, mine has only gotten bigger and bigger since day one. Absolutely love that. I think what I love so much about these movies, about Inside Out 1 and 2, is just the idea that there is always positive and negative experiences for all of us, and we are better people when we embrace them both. I really get tired of kids movies and kids shows that just basically say, it's okay, let's just be happy. I remember a review that came out for the first Trolls movie, which, if I remember correctly, came out the same year as Inside Out.
Let me jump in real quick. Sorry, Robert, which one was it where we had to do a sidebar about depression and you had to very publicly say telling clinically depressed people just be happy makes you want to join the jihadi movement?
Tomorrowland, Mark.
Oh, yes, Tomorrowland. Keep going, Alexis.
But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. The scene where Joy's coming up with the new pledge says, I'll just tell anxiety, don't worry. I was this close to flipping off the screen.
Rip the seat next to you and throw it at the screen.
It's like, I'm surrounded by children. I can't do anything, but oh my God, I just wanted to scream something.
Why is Alexis chucking a baby at the screen doing damn you, Pixar?
Tune in to find out.
But okay, so the first Trolls movie, because it talks about how the climax of that movie is that is about being happy and how you can always be happy. And it's like, does it not forget the lesson that Inside Out taught us, that sometimes, no, you're not happy, and that's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay to be sad.
The best line of this movie was Joyce saying, you know, maybe as you get older, it's normal to not have as much joy. That was the one line of this movie that really hit me hard.
Growing up,
I raised my hand like, that's familiar.
Maybe growing up is feeling less joy.
Yeah, like that was perfect. Like that and the you wonder why I pick at you. That and the Gambit release date on my tombstone. That's what's going to be there, you fucking assholes.
You know, Mark, I want you to understand something about the Gambit movie.
That in a podcast I wasn't on, yet my name had to get brought up again.
That wasn't the clip I tried to send you, okay? I sent you the clip about Dorian asking where the Phantom Baby was coming from. You went looking for the Gambit clip.
I listened to the whole stupid podcast. Go ahead.
Just so you understand, Mark, because this is how the universe is going to work for you.
It's going to come out after I die.
They're going to announce it after. Like, they will announce it right before. So you have this one moment of, oh, it's actually happening.
And then you'll have a stroke.
Yeah.
Then it never actually comes out.
Keep going, Alexis, before we finish up.
The only thing that, okay, it probably would have been a little too repetitive of the post-credits scene from the first movie where we saw the inside of Riley's parents and the guy she liked and the dog and the cat. Although the cat just randomly hitting the buttons thing freaking killed me. There is one scene I really, really wish they had added. We have this girl, Valentino, I think, who's just super popular, super cool, captain of the hockey team.
Nothing cooler in California than being the captain of the high school hockey team, let me tell you.
Just keep going, Alexis.
Writing issue, not a you issue.
I was expecting that we were going to get, again, like a mid-credit or a end of the movie scene where we were going to see inside some of the other characters' heads, because like we briefly see inside of her parents' heads again. I would have loved a scene in Val's head showing that she's having similar troubles with her anxiety and her stuff.
Yeah.
I would have loved just a brief moment of them saying, you know, even the people who are cool and that we look up to and are popular, they don't really have it all together either. I would have loved that addition.
A tacit admission that whether you're the cooler than the other side of the pillow or just the dorkiest of dorks, and everyone's got anxiety. Everyone struggles with some degree of depression, sadness, what have you. We all have this merry-go-round of intense emotions, and some of us are just better at coping than others. Would have been nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I was hoping for that. We didn't get. It's like I felt that it's like maybe that would have been a bit too repetitive of what they did in the last movie, but I think it really would have helped. But overall,
I'm with you.
Sorry, go ahead,
Robert.
Robert.
Done it. That's a brilliant idea. They absolutely should have done it. Make that what we do at the end of these movies. We look into people's heads that we haven't looked into before. Like it's not a bad gimmick.
Let me jump in here real quick, and we can double back, Alexis. So. Just some craft stuff and strictly craft things. Zach.
Yes.
And I don't want you to do a monologue or a bit or a tangent. I just want you to agree with me. I mean, I just want to hear your opinion on this. This felt like a straight to DVD or straight to VHS Disney sequel. Like it weirdly wasn't to me big enough or broad enough or epic enough to warrant theatrical exhibition, which is ironic considering what we've been saying about Pixar over the last few years. This felt like Return to Jafar or Cinderella 3 to me. Like it felt very, very. This almost could have been chopped up into a Disney Plus series.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think there was obviously they wanted to add more flair to it. I think that's the increase. But I do understand what you're saying, like on a story note, because I mean. Basically, when you really strip this movie down, it's just a girl goes to hockey camp, which, by the way, that was the most unrealistic thing of the movie. Does anyone really like hockey that much?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm glad you agree.
We have 2 Canadians working on this account, okay? Don't ever ask if hockey's popular ever again.
You're going to get angry messages from people over that one.
Moving back to my initial point. When you think about the plot structure of the first Inside Out, it's a road picture with joy and sadness as they start out as enemies, and they're forced into a journey together, and they find out what's good about the other. They work together and they save the day. Great. This one of my problems with it is, okay, we're gonna do kind of the same thing, only they already know each other, so there's just the journey, but we're gonna send them all this time. And I'm like, ugh, all right, this feels like Bob Iger kicked down the door at Pixar and said, I need sequels. I need shit that makes money. Make me an Inside Out movie. And they were like, all right, well, give us 5-10 years and we'll develop something and we'll give you a solid product. And he was like, I need it in a year. The fuck
you don't understand. The stock price is going down.
You can buy Disney stock for a stick of bubble gum these days.
It's not that bad, but it's under $100.
Yeah, I mean, like, and so they were just like, well, shit, and they're like tripping over themselves again. There's this naked woman running across the thing. Like, this felt very generic, very underdeveloped. I think they had a strong idea, but it's a bit slipshod and just kind of thrown together. And it's like, the movie works because the stuff about anxiety is so relatable, and that character is a very relatable character. And it's very straightforward. And we as an international audience love ourselves a simple, straightforward plot. My problem as a movie critic is it's very shallow. There's not enough to this for me to really get into, not like there was with the first one, and not like there was with a lot of Pixar. Again, I'll compare it to some of the best ones like Soul. So, Soul, when we talked about it, I remember that conversation. We really got deep into that review. And here, I mean, we could talk for another hour about what it is to be an adolescent child and the emotions, but it doesn't really tell you about the movie. The movie in and of itself, the journey that the original characters go on is not great. Like, you guys brought up the sarcasm, and that was so on the nose for me. That was so like a duh joke.
Of course, everything's on the nose. There's a brainstorm, Mark. There's a brainstorm.
It was like jokes. Some of the jokes are for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm not Zach. I would believe that because I love you like a brother, but some of your shit is exactly out of my kid's like 5-year-old riddle book, which is your charm. Don't get me wrong, but like that's not really what I wanted in this movie either. And so it's like you take the first one, which was exceedingly insightful, and they were like, well, crap, we only have 20 minutes to make this movie. Bob Iger's beating one of the guys from Pixar, and it won't stop until we're done. So they're just like, I don't know, like write fucking mental health puns. Get Zach on the phone.
He's beating him with one of the unsold Buzz Lightyear action figures.
Yeah. They're like, call Zach Strobel. Give us a book full of puns. We'll just throw him in the movie. Like, oh, God. So it's that. It's such a small movie. Your comment about Riley goes to skills camp. Riley wants to be part of the cool clique. Okay, I mean that's good for an episode of this television show. that's good for a mini series. I don't know if this is theatrical exhibition quality though. Like I said, it felt like I was watching somebody's like streak to VHS movie that they threw into a movie theater. As far as like the only really good things I can say about it are, I do like the fact that anxiety wasn't a strict villain. It was the best kind of villain that Robert and I have talked about, where her heart's in the right place. She's trying to do what she thinks is right, but she, it just gets out too far out ahead of her, and she loses control of things.
There's actually a really great moment if you want to understand kind of the central core of that character. It's when Riley's new sense of self finally fully coalesces, and the only thing going on, and anxiety's like, yay, new sense of self. This is going to be great. And the big message that comes booming out from this new sense of self is just, I'm not good enough. And there's this wonderful, it doesn't linger on the shot, but the great moment of anxiety going, oh crap, what have I done? And then
what have I done?
Desperately trying to cope with, means she knows there's room for self-improvement. Oh, please let me fix this.
Yeah. It was, I mean, like, it's not a bad movie. It's there's just stuff where it's lacking. And like, that was really good stuff. The interplay between joy and anxiety, I think, The movie does an okay job with it. I think as a group of us here, we're more projecting we're more projecting how interesting the interplay between pure joy and pure anxiety really are versus what the movie actually gave us. And then lastly, in terms of pacing, this thing clocks in. This was actually pretty brisk. This was 96 minutes.
Thumbs up on that.
Yeah, no credit where credit's due. Thank God. But even at 96 minutes, there were parts where they were going through the journey where I was like, if I'm going speed this up and the movie's actually moving at a brisk pace, that's a problem. It means there's not enough going on in this movie to really keep it full and flowing and keep you invested. You're just it's just short enough that it's not bothersome to sit there for that long. I wish they'd done more with the secondary characters. Envy there's a lot there. I mean, to deal with pure jealousy, pure envy, and how that messes with your mind and your relationship with other people is an interesting thing. And they turned her into kind of anxiety's toady, which missed opportunity there. There was some fun stuff with embarrassment and sadness, and just as soon as they get going with it, they abandon it. And then boredom was a great character, and I wish they'd given her more. Robert? Oh, go ahead, Alexis, then Robert.
Well, I was just gonna say, I did like the idea that embarrassment was the one who who starts to help sadness. I mean, what is embarrassment, but if not the reason or the emotion of we're doing something wrong,
right?
So it makes sense that he would be the one to be like, okay, I need to fix this. I really like that.
Yeah.
I also give credit to the actor. Oh God, what was this guy's name? Load faster, damn you. Paul Walter Hauser. We've seen him in a couple of other things.
Oh, he's a great actor.
Oh, he's terrific. And I'm very impressed with how he was just able to convey so much just from those little grunts and little groans and everything. He only has one line of actual dialogue. And frankly, I think he gives a much better performance here than he did in Cruella.
But he's not nearly as good as he is in Cobra Kai. Robert, go ahead.
Well, one, doing better than Cruella is an incredibly low bar.
Yes.
I think I see where you're coming from with this, Mark. Like, if this had another 8 months of script refining, this would have been. I think you would have had something really, really good. I
can't get past the fact that this feels rushed.
It does a little bit. It's carried by a very strong premise. You have a strong premise. You have more or less good returning characters and cast. You have writers who are familiar enough with the characters involved that all feels relatively easy. And you've got enough gags to kind of fill out some of the middle stuff that it doesn't feel, for most people, it's not going to feel as rushed as it probably was. So there's that. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot here. It's mostly fine. If there was a big missed opportunity here, and that one that I'm going to tack on to what you guys have mentioned, when Joy is trying to lead them through the mind, and she's very sure about, look, I've done this before, Sadness and I already went down this road. I think we might have needed a little bit more of them getting lost, of Joy in particular realizing how much Riley has changed and how much her fixation on, no, we created this perfect thing, of her sense of self and everything, and nothing changes and everything's great. And having that be confronted a little more viscerally throughout the course of that journey would have made her pseudo breakdown at the end when they get back and when they get to the old sense of self, and then oh no, we're stuck here. Whatever will we do?
Yeah.
I really did love
that tube. I really did love that use of the tube, everything to the back of the mind. The problem is they didn't do enough with it.
Yeah. There's just a few things like that you could have expounded on. I love Alexis's idea of getting a look into, this person you've idealized and like, oh no, turns out they're actually being run by anxiety, but it's anxiety slightly in more check by everyone else, but anxiety is the center one at the console. Because, sadness is in charge of the mom, anger's in charge of the dad. Like they're all working together in concert, but who's the central figure? Like you can, make some fun inferences from that. So there's some stuff that this is a good movie. It really is. You can also see that with a little more time and a little more care, we could have got something very good. And it falls a little short of that.
It's a good first draft. All right, Alexis, before we move on to the money, I'm very sympathetic towards my daughter kind of looking at this movie and going, yeah, I am just filled with anxiety every single day. And she goes to talk to a counselor now, and she's talking about trying to find her inner voice because she has a brother who was me. And I don't know if you know this about me because, we're such good friends, but I'm kind of a dick. And and I'm loud and I'm opinionated, which is hard to hear and see on a podcast I've been doing for 20 years. However, and so she has to now, well, I can more or less keep that in check with my own kids. When you have a 10-year-old who has become his father, she gets bowled over a lot. So, her thing is like, how do I contend with all of these internal and external forces going on in my life that have caused me to, retreat into my room away from people because I get overwhelmed so easily. And I see her, I hear her, I watched her interact with this movie. I guess you were starting to talk about the movie kind of hit you in a very similar way, but you're also, a 30-some-odd-year-old woman. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, 30, almost 40. Yeah.
I didn't want to say specifically. I almost went middle age. Like, yeah, you're a middle-aged woman now,
Oh, I've called all of us middle-aged before. How many times do I have to say it's like when we're discussing about how we need to add an extra disclaimer because we're talking about, I don't know, misgendering someone, and I have to say we're not hateful, we're not spiteful, we're just a bunch of middle-aged idiots.
You were saying.
Okay, no, I do suffer from anxiety disorder. I have for years. The scene at the climax where anxiety has literally made just a vortex, a freaking tornado, hit me so hard. I was having a flashback to a moment with my old therapist where I remember actually saying, it's like I'm in the center of a merry-go-round and it's going faster and faster and faster and I can't get out. Seeing that, it was like, yes, oh my God, yes. That is what it's been like for me so many times. Everything is going by so fast, so out of control. You really feel like you can't get out of it. It's horrible. And there are so few movies, so few anything in media that speak to that. I mean, we see a lot that speak to people with depression, but anxiety specifically, I don't think we've really seen enough of that. Hell, I made a joke with my aunt near the end when they have the little vibrating recliner chair for anxiety with the anxiety. That was a cute little cute gag.
Oh my God, throw that in there with the sarcasm and watch me hit my knees with the hammer.
To which I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I've got one of those little armchairs for my anxiety in my brain too. It comes in a pill bottle. It's called Paxil. Hell, I was waiting for Robert when he mentioned that they got anxiety under control. I was waiting for jokes like, so they got it under control, aka it looks like her parents got her on medication. I was seriously expecting that joke out of you, Robert. I'm a little disappointed.
I don't joke about that a whole lot. I don't know.
Enough.
Probably look, I was on antidepressants for a fairly significant chunk of time. So I don't find a tremendous amount of humor in that. Oh, hey, look, we're medicating the anxiety. Like, you kind of should. Don't know what else to tell you.
But no, this movie really did speak to me because of how much I've had to go through and how hard it's been. I have seen so many doctors. My parents thought for the longest time I had severe ADHD. It took 2 separate therapists and a doctor to convince them, no, that's just a side effect of how bad her anxiety is. you know, and it has been a nightmare deal that it's like to see that played up on the screen. The scene again with the imagination fort tent being turned into worst case scenario. It's like, oh my God, it's like literally like Pixar, get out of my head.
It's funny. I've dated 2 different women who, you know, as a guy and a guy who acts the way that I do, I go, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take you to this concert. I'm going to take you to this hotel. I'm going to do this with you, do that with you. And my whole thing is be happy and grateful that I was, you know, a thoughtful boyfriend and I want to do this and just go for the ride. Like, have fun. Like, you know, be happy that this is happening for you. And I would get 20 questions. What, you know, what kind of room do we have? What kind of food do they have? What do I need to bring? What, like 20 to 30 questions about half of them. Like, do you not want to do this? Like, is this really bothering you? No, I have anxiety and I need to prepare. And I would say things like, and Robert's probably going to laugh at this, like, we'll call it in the ring, brother. And at least one of those girls would be like, I'm a girl. I don't call anything in the ring. So every girl is Randy Savage in the WrestleMania 3 match with Ricky Steamboat as they're writing out every move they're going to do. And every guy is Ricky Steamboat looking at Randy Savage cross-eyed going, bro, like, let's just wrestle. It'll be fine. And this is why men and women don't get along. But yeah, I
there's so much wrong with what you just said, but I can't tackle it.
The only thing I want to add to that is, well, I certainly sympathize with a lot of the anxiety stuff. The one thing that really did hit me with this movie, and then we're going to move on the money, because I forgot to mention before. I touched on it a little bit. Working in the mental health field, I have to. It's very easy, especially in a correctional facility, to just lay everything at the feet of, well, that's mental health. You know, it's as if normal people have no mental health issues at all, and then there's just this group of people who, whatever their mental health is, it's the reason why they misbehave. It's the reason why they're acting out. It's the reason why they're a problem. It's the reason why they broke the law. And it's like, that's not how human beings operate. And so, for example, you know, I used to work in central booking, and I don't know if you know this or not, but when people get arrested, they tend to get upset. It's a very yeah, I know. It is my
worldview crumbles.
It is a very natural, reasonable occurrence for someone to feel angry or sad when being, you know, initially booked into jail. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a nurse walk somebody over to me and go, this person's sad and crying. You should talk to him. And I'm like, why? That's a reasonable response. That is a reasonable response to what's happening to them right now. I think the problem, if I may get on my own soapbox for just a moment, I think the problem we get into in our society is we tend to want to idealize having no emotions, as if we're supposed to walk through life like automatons and not have any kind of emotional reaction to anything.
A lot of people took the wrong lessons from the Vulcans. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah. And so, you know, when I talk about it is a part of the natural course of human existence to be sad, angry, happy, to have sex, to want to be alone, to be anxious. These are all, to have anxiety, because if I have to hear one more person say this to me, I have anxiety, as if, okay, we all have anxiety. I had anxiety getting to the show together tonight because I'm in a new place, using a new computer, having to redo a bunch of things on a time frame on an internet that may or may not be shaky. Like, I was starting to vibrate before the show started, and you know, I haven't had any lags tonight, but I was afraid of that, and I was really anxious about it. That is natural, given the amount of things I was having to juggle before the show started tonight. And we go through life thinking like, no, any anxiety is bad. We shouldn't have that at all. It's like, no. Anxiety is part of your fight or flight. That's like a natural defense for your body. We all have that. It's supposed to be there. The problem is when you can't regulate it. When you can't regulate your anxiety, your anger, your sadness, your joy. You ever see an unregulated, joyous person? Ever want to throw them off a fucking bridge?
All the time.
it's like you're just not reacting to reality, and like that's the person that's gonna snap one of these days.
Unregulated joy. I've seen bipolar. I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, what is bipolar but very extreme highs and very extreme lows, and you
That's
go
what I'm
through a
saying. It's like
cycle.
that's
Yeah.
the only time I've seen unregulated joy is that one side of bipolar
Right.
disorder.
Yeah, that happy manicness that leads to some terrible decisions. But my point being, when Joy was saying, when Joy, the character of Joy was saying in this movie, maybe as you go through life you just experience less joy or something along those lines. I was like, oh, good, the movie gets it. So whoever wrote that line, they fucking understand, because like it's exhausting trying to explain that to people, that it's not about not having the emotion that makes you less human. It's about being able to cope and regulate. And if you need medication for that, or if you need therapeutic exercises for that, then by all means do them. I could do another hour on stigmatizing mental illness, but otherwise, like, stop living in this world where you think you shouldn't have natural emotions, both positive and negative. That's part of being a human being, and it drives me a little nuts. And at least to the degree that the movie touched on that made me feel pretty good, and at least I kind of saw some of my own beliefs in the movie, which was nice.
This movie a long time to get to a point that King of the Hill did in one episode, as far as that goes.
You want to flesh that out for me real in 10 words or less?
There's an episode of King of the Hill where Bobby joins the trivia team for his school. I forget what they call it there, but there's a name for it. The smart people go up, and everybody has their area of expertise. And there's Matt, and you compete against different schools. You ring in, you answer questions. And Bobby Hill is a pop culture savant.
Mm.
Oh, good. So he's one of us.
And this team desperately needs that. They have math, they have like culture, they have
science, history.
Yeah, they have all this other, but pop culture is their Achilles heel. And then it turns out that Bobby knows a bunch about this, and he's on this team now with a bunch of people who are serious academics as far as high school goes, or middle school. So they're like, hey, don't screw this up. we have 4.0 GPAs to maintain, and this extracurricular might put us over the top, like those kinds of kids. And he starts to get super stressed out about it, to the point where he stops functioning. And he tries to quit. And at the end, Hank just kind of sits down with him and goes, look, we're going to get through this. Just sit down, let's just watch some TV. We can talk about some of this stuff because this is your studying process. And he just goes, but what about the stress, Dad? And Hank just tells him, look, stress is part of life. It's okay. I'm stressed occasionally about work and paying bills, and it's not bad to be stressed about things you have to get done. You just have to regulate it properly. And as with so many great King of the Hill episodes, it ends with the two meeting in the middle because they both have things to learn from each other. And man, they just got there in 20 minutes for that episode, whereas this movie touched on other things and took a bit longer.
And with that said, when we touching things and making it longer, here comes the money.
Why?
Oh wait,
Why?
I forgot to say. I can say
you wait for me to do a sexual innuendo, and then that suddenly jogs your memory, Zach?
Exactly.
Given that your innuendo are exist at about the same intellectual level as his puns, yes, you would trigger each other.
Ooh.
That's not all we're gonna do. That's not all we're gonna do to each other. I don't know. Fucking talk already. Go, Zach.
All right. So I was getting all my information, and when I mean information, I was looking through YouTube comments, and someone actually wrote something pretty poetic. Someone actually wrote, and it actually kind of resonated with this movie. They said, in a lot of Pixar movies, someone said Disney is the world that we hope to dream in, but Pixar is the world that we live in.
Yeah, dead on. Pretty dead on.
I like that.
But what I was going to say was, I think maybe that's why this movie is making so much money and connecting with people, because it is a very small story, but it's small, but it's very personal, which makes it feel bigger than I think it really is.
I'm going to say this and then hit the button. I also think people have been craving something relatable that isn't gonna something relatable that they feel like they can safely bring their children to, and that's why this movie is succeeding. It's like, it's a thirst. We are a thirsty crowd, and this is a fairly cold cup of water. And with that said, Here comes.
We're in the money.
Alrighty. Sorry, I'm a little slow tonight. All right. On a budget of $200 million, this thing has earned $294.2 million. So it is wildly successful so far. Probably the most successful, one of the most successful debuts this year in the year of our Lord 2024. Yeah.
It finally surpassed Dune 2's opening weekend.
Yep.
This is the movie they should have released last year instead of Wish for the 100th celebration.
Ain't that yeah? As of June 16th, 2024, Inside Out 2 has grossed $154.2 million in the U.S. and Canada, and 140 in other territories for a worldwide total of $294.2 million. There's people at Universal right now just punching mirrors.
Sorry, but while you read that, just as a minor note, did you see some of the concept stuff for Wish that came out?
No.
Back when it was in original development?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I saw some of the stuff. Apparently, it was very similar to Neil Gaiman's Stardust.
It was, but they did two major changes, which kind of gutted that movie's potential. Originally, what came down from the star was Star Boy, was a love interest for the main character.
Hence why I was saying Stardust by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, and both the king and the queen were evil.
Mm-hmm.
And right, two minor changes, and suddenly you fix so many of the problems with that movie.
On a budget of $200 million, Inside Out 2 was initially projected to gross $80 to $90 million in its domestic opening weekend. The Disney and Pixar is suddenly turning into fucking Oliver Twist. What can I? Yeah. The sub $100 million industry projections were partially due to the notion that general audiences remain hesitant to return to theaters. Given the direct streaming releases of Pixar films, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, and Disney Plus, the underperformance of Pixar's Lightyear. Underperformance. How about fucking Wild Bomb?
Mark,
I still laugh at that show.
I have one request of you when the show's over.
Yeah.
Keep that Wikipedia page open. Edit that to say, instead of underperformance, the bombing of Lightyear. I want you to edit that.
That bomb was more of a Moab.
It was borderline nuclear.
Yeah. We should go back and listen to our review of that. We were
pretty sure Oppenheimer was on the board that created that movie.
We were howling at how poor that movie did. After making $62 million on its first day, including $13 million from Thursday night previews, projections were raised to 140 to 150. It went from 90 to 150 million. That is crazy, given the amount of problems theatrical exhibitions are having right now.
A little bit.
It ended up grossing 155 million domestically and 140 million from 38 international markets worldwide. The highest for a worldwide debut of 295 million, the highest in Pixar history. You know what this means, don't you? We're going to get an Inside Out 3 because Lizard Brain.
Hang on, let me defend.
I was actually going to ask you guys what you thought would be on an Inside Out 3. I was going to ask you that as we were wrapping up.
Two things I think. Well, one, there's an infinite amount of potential here because you're marrying just mundane slice of life stuff with the internal journey through your own mind, and there's a lot of potential there to be mined. So this isn't quite as derivative as other endless retreads through the same IP, because there's still potential there. Couple of things I think need to happen if we're going to do 3. We need hormones to show up, either as a giant button on the console that gets hit randomly, or as its own character.
Oh, I joked that the little blobs things that ransack the brain were hormones.
I think she needs to age up a little bit more. I was thinking 18 or maybe even go to college. But if you just want to stick with raging hormones, she needs to be a 16-year-old girl, because then you can be driving with her.
Yeah, get to 16 learning to drive.
Yeah. There's some fun stuff.
Then it's going to be that episode of Katie Kaboom from the Animaniacs.
God, I hope. In the U.S. and Canada, the 152 million opening weekend was the best of 2024. Yeah, no shit. Surpassing Dune Part 2 and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, become the first film of the year to open above 100 million, and the second best for an animated film behind Pixar's own Incredibles 2. It was the fourth best opening for a PG film after The Lion King 2019. Boo! Boo The Lion King. Dude, even my kids think the new Mufasa movie sucks dick, by the way. They saw the trailer for that. They were like, what is this nonsense?
Look, man, that's going to do horribly.
I hope.
Horribly.
Two things about that are raising giant red flags. One, I saw that Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen have been cast, which means we're going to pull the whole, Mufasa knew Timon and Simba before Simba met him. Of course. And the other thing is the heavy marketing the trailer is doing that Beyonce Knowles' daughter is going to be in this. That is never a good sign.
No, it isn't.
Did Zach say anything to either one of you? Oh, no, he's still there. Where are you, Zach? Hang on. So, Alexis, can you put Zach in the back on the screen? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You can open your eyes, Zach. You're back.
Oh, thank goodness.
On my laptop, I couldn't get to where he was. All right. Finishing my wiki read here.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Zach. We didn't mean to banish you temporarily.
So good. I saw my life pass behind my eyes.
With an average ticket price of $12.53. Yeah. With an average ticket price of $12.52, 12 million moviegoers saw the film in its first weekend, nearing the 13 million admissions for Barbie.
A Disney fan is writing this part of the wiki. They're just fluffing it.
All right, so we're going to move on. All right, here's the weekend that was. We didn't do a show last week. I did a Whiskey Rebellion with Ronnie because he cannot be trusted to do a damn you Hollywood. So we didn't read the numbers or anything, but we did talk about Bad Boys 4. At least I did. He didn't see the movie. Inside Out was the number one movie of this weekend. Bad Boys Ride or Die fell from 1 to 2, which
I imagine that's a pretty terrible film, but because we're starved for good action, it's probably overperforming.
I don't know. I didn't watch the Drinkers video, but he subtitled it exactly what I needed. So you're probably dead on there. Only a 40% drop, which is not bad. I mean, like,
no.
Look.
Well, hang on. Serious question about Bad Boys, which I never thought not a sentence I ever thought I'd utter. What's competing with it?
Yeah.
The closest you might have is Furiosa, and that thing's already done what it's going to do.
And I don't mean this as a racial thing. I'm using prejudice in the other way that a prejudice is meant. You have your prejudices about Bad Boys, and you're entitled to them. But the fact of the matter is, and I said this to Ronnie when we talked about it, Bad Boys Ride or Die is the most eminently crowd-pleasing movie I've seen this year. It is the very definition of a crowd-pleasing action movie.
Which does not surprise me one iota, and there is nothing else that is tackling the heavier action-oriented, stupid popcorn movie right now. That's not in the theaters. If you want that, that's what you're watching.
Sorry, folks, you have to deal with the fact there's no Fast and Furious movie this year, so that's what you're going to get.
We're all grateful for that. Piss on those films.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes opened up, I guess, in another territory because it went up a few spots here. So
it did. Not because it opened up. Look at the change. It actually went down in theaters. It went up because
more people wanted to go see it.
Everything else went down. That's it.
Fair enough. You're right. I looked at the wrong column. So that jumped from 5 to 3. Garfield dropped from 2 to 4.
What was the budget on Garfield? Did you guys talk about that?
I don't think we did.
I think it was like 20 grand. Not grand. That could have fooled me. I think 20.
You guys did a great craft review, and then we got to the money and Rotten
and
Tomatoes,
I pressed the wrong button,
and that train hit the rails real fast.
The point there being, my hunch is Garfield, if it was reasonably budgeted, is going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm not really
saying
anything about it. It dropped a bunch of places. So, if dropped from, speaking of bombing, if dropped from 3 to 5,
struggling.
Yeah, 4 to 6 for the watches. Furiosa, please no more of these movies. No more Mad Max. 6 to 7. The Fall Guys 7 to 8. The Strangers jumped up a spot from 10 to 9, and then we've got some Lord of the Rings re-releases here. Fellowship went from 8 to 10. Two Towers 9 to 11.
That's what my brother spent his weekend watching.
Nice.
I had a lot of friends who did that too.
An A24 movie called Tuesday opened in a bunch of theaters. That jumped from 30 to 12. We have Treasure, which opened at number 13. Firebrand at 14. Ghostlight at 27. Korobora
Ghostlight,
at
the worst
33.
hang on, Ghostlight, the worst version of gaslighting.
Shoeshine 34. Summer Solstice 38. Naked X 39. Just the two of us. Robert Winfree, if we try. Just the two of us.
There's
number
only
46.
going to be one of us at the end of that. Just so you know.
Whatever. All right. Worldwide on the dime. Dune, still number 1. Godzilla times Kong, still number 2. Kung Fu fucking Panda, still number 3. Hey, we have movement. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is at 375 at number 4.
Good for it. That movie is another example of why it's a bad idea to give a theatrical release, especially one that you paid a lot of money for, like 3 weeks and then throw it on a streaming service. Like, let the thing stick around a little bit.
Yeah.
Movies can have some legs now. You're never going to get like what you used to have pre-COVID. Right. You're not going to have long legs like that, but it doesn't have to be, 4 weeks and then find it on Max. Like it's not that dire.
Inside Out is debuting in the top 10 at number 5. Garfield number 6. Garfield's doing fairly decent. Bad Boys at number 7. Ghostbusters down to 8. Bob Marley down to 9. And hey, finally the Beekeeper is out of the top 10, along with Mean Girls and Madame Web. There is a God.
Do you think there'll be a crossover between the Mean Girls and the Bad Boys?
So Furiosa did surpass the Beekeeper. We had kind of questioned whether or not it might.
Just barely at 160.
Now the question is, does it get another 10 to get past Fall Guy?
Yeah.
Which seems possible, but I don't think it's taking over If.
It's going to get knocked out of the top 10. With the next
Are we still of the belief that Dune's going to hold on to the top 1 until possibly Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah.
When does Deadpool and Wolverine come out?
Next
Mid-July.
month.
With that much time, Inside Out might overtake it.
I mean, the question is that when your debut is almost 300 million, does it get, is Inside Out the first movie this year to get to $1 billion now? Which we have to start asking that question because we weren't up until, this giant ass fucking impact.
I have a theory.
Which theory, Pat Pal?
All right. So my theory is that a lot of kids are going to want to go see Deadpool, but the problem with Deadpool is it's rated R, so they're going to buy a ticket to Inside Out 2. And then
go sneak into.
And it's gonna. That's my theory.
It's possible.
I did that a lot growing up. That was how I would snuck into R-rated movies.
So that's
ultimately, I think Inside Out 2 is probably going to surpass Dune 2. I don't know if it'll do that before Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. Is the big question. I don't think it I'm not saying $1 billion is impossible for it. I think it's probably going to fall a little short of that.
Argyle is doing better than Challengers by a factor of $3 million. And neither one has passed Madame Web. There is no God.
That's sad on so many levels for so many different things.
Back to Black is at 25 with 50 million. Apparently it's a shit movie.
Not surprising.
Abigail had a small budget, but that's stuck at 42.
Abigail will be okay because its budget was like 15.
It was a $150.
If you make a movie for a low enough budget, then even 40, you're tap dancing. That's kind of where.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare at a paltry 40 with 26 million. Poor Guy Ritchie.
That movie deserved better.
Yeah,
I don't say that very often, but that movie deserved better than that.
You especially don't say that often about Guy Ritchie movies.
All right, so
I had my issues with that movie. It's a better movie than Madame Web.
All right, so this weekend, just kind of going on I don't want to open up any more windows. We got the Bike Riders this Friday, and then we'll be talking about it on Damn You Hollywood. Then we got a Quiet Place
you and I are the only ones going to see that, Mark, just for the record.
We actually have 2 people coming on that show now. We have, and apparently they both ride motorcycles. We have her boyfriend, Dorian, and then his boyfriend, Matt Kenter. They're both going to be on, and they both asked to be on because they want to talk about motorcycle culture. So
that's fair.
Robert,
and one of my uncles.
Hang on, Robert. Don't tell them, but we have to have more guests on the show. It can never just be me and you, Robert. I miss us, but don't tell Alexis and Zach. What are you saying?
I'm sorry.
Why are you like this?
I'm sorry. I thought I heard something BSy in the wind.
You did.
That's just me. Go ahead. You're talking about motorcycles.
Yeah, one of my uncles was actually not just like likes motorcycles, but was I forget. I want to say it was the Huns.
Really?
It was Huns or Mongols. I think it was Huns. Yeah, he was some of my family. I have an interesting family. So yeah, I've got family members who were like outlaw bikers.
That's awesome. That'll be a fun show. And then we have A Quiet Place 2. That'll, I think, make a decent amount of money. I just, judging by the trailer, the cast, some of people's issues with modern movies today, I think A Quiet Place will do okay. I don't think it's going to do phenomenal.
That one will probably be fine. Not great, but
we have 2 movies not currently cutting into Inside Out 2. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
And then we've got Despicable. Yeah. So its first major competition is July 3rd, and it's Despicable Me 4. And that one we've talked pretty openly about it making $1 billion. That franchise came wrong.
Billion seems like a stretch still, just because the world is the way it is right now. Not impossible. Despicable Me 4 is probably one of the top 4 movies of the year when it's all said and done. If we're just projecting out,
it is kind of hilarious just how that it's like we would have predicted that franchise had died out ages ago with the Minions movies and everything. It's like, no, it's still raking in quite a bit of money.
There is something about.
Hang on. Did you see the parody that Illumination put out of the Minions verse?
No.
They had Steve Carell stand in front of the sliding time board and talk about all the upcoming Minions and Despicable Me movies like he's talking about the MCU. And it goes out for 50 years and it's just Minion stuff. It's the best send up of this crap ever.
That's hilarious.
I say this sort of colloquially and facetiously. I cannot begin to understand what the appeal is. I know what the appeal is, but I don't want to sit here for another 5 hours.
Looney Tunes, man. If WB is not going to give us Looney Tunes, Illumination will give us Minions, and they will fill the same niche.
What's funny, and the only thing I'm going to say about this, and we'll move on, is we talk about Disney and Pixar really lost a fair share of its audience. It's starting to get them back now, but it's very much begging and pleading and promising to change and not burn the meatloaf. Meanwhile, there's Illumination. Even when they miss, who gives a fuck? The migration didn't make big money, but it didn't offend anyone either.
It didn't migration didn't offend anyone. It'll probably sell decent merch because you sell fun little stuffed ducks.
It was a low budget movie. I mean, it really didn't. It made its budget back easily.
It was technically profitable and not a home run, but I don't remember the last time we sat down and talked about Illumination losing money on a movie.
So my point being, so if you're a family, you don't pay attention to the movies, you just know what you like and you know what it's safe to bring your kids to. Haven't had a movie that has upset, the average parent yet. And Despicable Me and the Minions movies are wildly dependable. And in these uncertain, shaky times, wildly dependable is high currency.
You can't buy. Disney would kill for half of the reputation at this point with families that Illumination has.
Yeah.
And now, little message to Illumination: get cracking on the Mario Brothers sequel.
Ugh. All right. So I don't want to open up another window. It might crash my laptop. So Robert, you're in charge. And with that said, the critical review.
Are you ready? I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty, so if you see me looking off to the side, that's because I'm reading this off my second monitor so I can continue watching everyone else's faces. So I apologize. I will not be looking at the camera for a little bit.
Did you get admin privileges, Robert?
No,
okay.
you as a guest can still share your screen. Jesse does it all the time.
Oh, okay. I hate to say it. I never did that much when I was a guest, so I could have sworn that was admin only.
Nope.
My bad.
He has to choose to start showing what I'm sharing, but I can just share any of my screens.
Gotcha.
Side note, Mark, stop sharing some of those screens. You're a dirty man. All right, we have here this is certified fresh to the shock of almost no one these days. At 91%, audience score of 96. Everyone seems happy with this.
Yay.
Wrong button. Hang on. No, I will not disable my ad block for you. Get banned. It's this one. Okay. Now, if I will not. Hey, dear websites and software developers,
Trying to make you sell your soul.
I am never. How likely are you to recommend Rotten Tomatoes? I can't tell you. Like Windows asked the same thing. How likely are you to recommend Windows 11?
I'm fucking like melting down. Like fuck off. Like it just want to.
Have never talked operating systems with anyone ever. This is not a thing human beings do. So top critics 88%, all critics goes up to 91. So slight dip for the top critics, which I don't think is unfair. Verified audience 96, all audience 95, essentially a negligible difference there. So everyone more or less seems happy.
Hey Robert.
Yes, sir.
This is one of those opportunities where you can have revenge because you're in charge of this segment.
Look, you just tell me what you want to read out.
I want you to read that. I want you to read the pop-ups.
It'll come out. Hang on. It'll let me continue without disabling in a second. I'm not.
If that keeps happening, I'll pull it up. I don't have that blocker.
Hang on, just takes a few.
Christ almighty,
Look, man, I live in Utah. We have a bunch of billboards. I don't need to see it when I drive. When I am on the internet, I'm not disabling my ad block. I also don't trust your ad software not to be malicious. So get bent once again. Okay, who are we looking for? What do we have here? From Age of Geek, we have John Amonji. The storyline makes little sense, and the main emotion antagonist doesn't visually fit into parameters set by the already established characters. I call BS.
She doesn't
on
like
all of
that anxiety doesn't look human, like the humanish. The others have like more humanish qualities than anxiety does. Anxiety
Sadness
looks like a Muppet.
Sadness looks like a refrigerator with stubby legs. Like, can we? Come on, man. And fucking anger, his head catches on fire. Can we not do that?
Believe me, I'm with you there.
Didn't say I agree with them. Just
Eric Martian of the Untitled Movie Podcast, and yet we're in obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
Another mid-tier Pixar sequel struggles to find its sense of self.
Womp womp.
Did you see what he did there? Coasting purely on cleverness. There are moments of joy, but it feels like a step down compared to the first film and Turning Red.
What?
Oh, fuck this guy.
This is, for the record, I agree this is a step down from the first one. This is better than Turning Red.
Yeah.
Much better.
I don't have to have lived in the 90s in Toronto to understand this one. We have a top critic from the Tribune News Service, Katie Walsh. The imagery is smart, but it has the feeling of an educational children's book. The movie's internal logic tests our own belief systems and fails to impart anything profoundly insightful to an adult audience. I'm not quite sure I agree with all that.
I get the feeling this is somebody who's never been willing to admit that when they have an anxiety attack.
Could be.
A few more, Robert, and let's go on tonight.
Doug Walker from Channel Awesome.
We hate you, Doug Walker. We hate you.
I did a review. I actually did an interview with him in, I think it was 2008, so I was like really young. It's the most awkward interview ever.
It sounds it.
You might as well have just said you interviewed Harvey Weinstein while you were at it.
That feels like an interview that ends. It feels like an interview that ends with a date where you wake up in your back seat. You don't quite know how you got there.
Just read it.
One of the rare sequels that not only matches the original, but may also surpass it.
Is he getting checks from Disney?
Probably.
Oh, are you kidding me? Did you see his Nostalgia Critic review of Wish?
No.
He actually used some of the things we put on. I think my favorite one is you're trying to Lin-Manuel Miranda. Stop trying to Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It is a complaint. We leveled at that. Where are people?
Oh, there he is.
There's Kevin Carr. Hey, Kevin Carr. How you doing, buddy? Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies.
I loved him in Kevin Cars 3.
Mark. Okay, Mark, I have a request of something to add to your soundboard.
Mm-hmm.
You need to add the Boo This Man bit from is it Half Baked?
Okay, I will find it.
I need that. I need
Yeah.
that now as a
Yep.
thing. Anyway, Inside Out 2 is a great family film with beautiful animation and an emotional core that has made Pixar's stand. Okay, you have badly phrased this, and now I'm like editing you in real time. Sorry. Take two. Inside Out 2 is a great family film with beautiful animation and an emotional core that has made Pixar films stand out for decades. It's not as good as the original, but this does course correct from some stumbles in the past.
And I
Not
can see
wrong.
Russia from my house.
This feels like ad copy because this is badly phrased.
Badly phrased, but at its whole, not wrong.
No, not wrong, but
Just
still.
really
that
needed a good editor.
feels a little copy pasty, yeah.
Let's find some more
no.
negative ones to make fun of people.
There's not a lot of them. Oh, of course.
Oh, Black
We
Robert
can always
Winfree.
rely on the contrarian here. I do not. You have to introduce him, Mark, because I don't say what you say.
Yeah. It's Black Robert Winfree, Armand White of the National Review.
See, I can't say that. I could say this is Black Mark Radulich, but I can't say it's Black me.
Right.
It's too weird. Of National Review. Inside Out may have been the best of all Pixar films. You know, that is a defensible position. I don't agree with it, but it's defensible. But what made it so owes to a premise that went beyond childhood innocence to imagine everyone's psychology. Now, Inside Out 2 resorts to trite family movie insipidness.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but this feels more bitter than it needs to be. This
guess
is
he-
leaning into contrarianism.
Well, he is
for the
Black
sake-
you, after all.
Okay, so you know how I made a joke about comparing Riley to Katie Kaboom
Yeah.
from Animaniacs? I saw a review of that ages ago where a guy talked about how he was just totally unrelatable, to which I watched said, "You never grew up with a teenage girl. You know, it's like you had no sisters, or if you had them, they're young enough that they haven't become teenagers yet, because you clearly don't get it." Something like that. And it's like, again, you never grew up around teenage girls, did you?
All right, one more and then we'll get out of here.
Hang on. If there's only one more.
Oh, look, David Sexton's making fun of ice hockey too.
Okay. Well, let's do this one then, shall we? Then I might scroll a little bit to see if there's anyone else that we recognize. We have David Sexton of the New Statesman, top critic. New Statesman, Mark. New.
Okay.
The film is set almost entirely in a 3-day ice hockey camp for girls. Ice hockey! You can smell the indignation. To non-American viewers, this is about as exciting and significant as competitive calligraphy. Sir, nobody complained about Bend It Like Beckham.
So I have people in my house who every time I turn around, they're telling me about, because we have big fans of the Florida Panthers in my house. And this is all I've heard about for the past few weeks.
Let me stress.
Their race for the Stanley Cup. Like, trust me, Americans like hockey. I guarantee that.
I
cannot-
watch hockey because it's too bright and it's just white.
Can't stress enough how inside your own silo you have to be not to understand that there are giant sections of the United States of America where hockey is like the number 2 sport that they follow. Giant sections.
Yeah.
But this idiot, who's never been out of the valley in Southern California, the only people who like hockey are like Russians or the Nordics, right? Like, get bent. You profoundly unhelpful. See if there's anyone else that we recognize.
Oh, there's Jeff.
Jeffrey Harris, friend of mine, 411mania.com. You give this a 9.5 out of 10. Okay. Inside Out 2 runs the gamut of emotions, creating an epic odyssey about growing up and the turbulent emotions young teens exhibit during that process. As far as sequels go, it's among Pixar's best work. Hang on, I got to think about that for half a second because that's an important qualifier. Is this better than Cars 2? Yes.
A million
Yes.
times.
Is this better than Toy Story 2?
No.
No.
Is this what other sequels do we have from Pixar?
Finding Dory. No.
Is this better than Finding Dory?
No.
I think you're right. No, it's not.
Not better than Toy Story 3, but better than Toy Story 4.
I don't think it's better than
Sure.
Incredibles 2.
That one's a little bit up in the air. I might accept that. That one might be down to personal preference. Like there's a personal attachment on that one that might swing you one way. So maybe on par with Incredibles 2, and then
Monsters.
Hang on, I
Universe.
actually had
It's-
the
hang on, it's
Pixar
better-
films list up here. Hang on a
It's
second.
better than Monsters University.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, better than Monsters University.
and better than Cars 3.
Let's leave the threequels out. Let's only go with immediate sequels for the sake of
Okay, then yeah, then we covered
not getting
all of them.
lost discussing longer franchises.
All right, I'm gonna.
So hang on. So among the better Pixar sequels, yes, not the best. I imagine that not to delve too deeply into this one, but if you happen to have an anxiety issue, I imagine this movie resonates with you a lot more than it does with others. Like I said, the first Inside Out, I cried a couple of different times.
Mm-hmm.
This was when I say I didn't cry at this one, I wasn't even especially close, but I can see why other people did, so I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, Coco's the one that, like, you and I both, Mark, like, we couldn't.
I mean, that's going to end up on the fucking RIBN album, Coco Cry. Like, it's a whole term here because of how I talked about that. Like, my daughter and I were in such bad shape after that movie. Like, I couldn't leave the theater immediately. I remember my face hurt, my head hurt. I think I ran out of tears. Like, that movie just kicked me in every part of my body.
I still remember walking out, putting my 3D glasses in the bin, and there was a movie theater employee standing behind there, and I must have looked a fright because he just shot me this weird look, and I literally just looked at him and went, "Shut up!" and threw my glasses down.
Real quick, so I've hardly ever seen my dad cry. He cried when his friend Jim died. He's cried at a couple of different movies here or there, but for the most part, my Spectrum-y dad doesn't really show a tremendous amount of emotion. And I remember that Christmas watching Soul with him, and it hadn't quite hit me yet, but then I could hear kind of a whimper, and he was sitting next to me, so I didn't notice him at first. He was in my peripheral vision. And I hear the whimper, and I looked at him, and he had been like, his glasses were off, and his face was in his hands, and he was all a tatters. The movie itself didn't hit me as hard. Watching my dad react to Soul fucking crushed me. Like, it was like that, the lard ass scene from Stand By Me. He's crying, I'm crying. Yeah. All right. So that is our review of Inside Out 2. Next week is The Bike Riders, and then A Quiet Place Day 1. The rest of this week, Wednesday, for the first time in a while, I'm going to be recording on a Wednesday, and Gavin Napier will be back, speaking of first time in a while. And you might be thinking, like, there's no more Ted Lasso left. Yes, we know. But occasionally I like to bring people who are passionate about things, and Gavin Napier is nothing if not passionate about Ryan Reynolds. So we're going to look at a triple feature of Ryan Reynolds films: Chaos Theory, Waiting, and Van Wilder. And then the Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox is back, and because I got to pick the album this time, we're talking the new Bon Jovi album. So we're going to talk old Bon Jovi, new Bon Jovi. We're going to talk Bad Medicine. We're going to talk You Give Love a Bad Name. What now?
You can tell the difference between new Bon Jovi and old Bon Jovi.
You really can. New Bon Jovi is not that good. Anyway, so we're going to talk all things Bon Jovi.
Allow me to counter. Old Bon Jovi is not that good.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I'll tell you what, especially because of the Fall Guy, but the best sound in life I hear right now is when my kids are singing Bon Jovi in the car because they use the one song in the trailer for the Fall Guy. So yes, my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old are now very familiar with at least the first two Bon Jovi albums. Parenting.
And we once again weep for the future.
Speaking of weeping for the future, Zach, I hear you write books.
Yes, I do. Do you know that there's little people inside your head? That's terrifying. But what's not terrifying is I had to segue some way. Is the low prices of my book on Amazon. Can we pull that up, or just have to use my imagination?
Can you please?
Hang on, I got it.
No, stop. Can we not do pages? Can we just rip through this real quick?
Oh,
yeah. Okay, cool. So anyway, if you go with our imagination, if we go to Amazon.com.
Oh, you broke him. You broke Mark. Good job.
You're officially one of us now, Zach. You finally broke him.
Oh, about time. Anyway, so we have books like Dinosaurs on the Moon, which is cool. We have other books called Friendship Sanctuary, which is like Looney Tunes meets Star Wars, but like before all that. But
Disney.
Before all the Disney, thank you. And we have books for kids that are trying to read because it's now summer reading. The books are between maybe like $7 and $15, so not. I mean, it's also Amazon, so there's probably like 1 million gift codes. Yeah, I worked really hard on them. Alexis helped me out. And yeah, very proud of them.
All right, very good, Zach.
Thank
Alexis, real quick with your company, go.
All right, so yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We just uploaded a bunch of new stuff to our page, a couple of new charm bracelets made from special edition Clue pieces, and a new set of our Vault Tech cufflinks for our Fallout fans out there. We're still getting ready for the con season to pick back up. Hopefully we'll be hearing soon if we did get off the wait list for the Greater Austin Comic Con. Pretty pleased. If not, you can check us out in August at Colorado Springs Comic Con. That's one of our favorites. Cannot wait to be working there. You can find everything in our shops on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I will never call it X, and TikTok. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection. I'm tripping over my own catchphrase. The intersection of geek and chic.
Hey, Robert, I'm going to have 2 monitors going, and I'm going to go TikTok live this Saturday for the UFC on ABC and for the DAZN fight across the seas. So from 12 to 6, baby, I return to TikTok live. And that's a segue for you to talk about how you're covering the UFC on ABC this Saturday afternoon.
Okay, so I am not covering UFC on ABC this.
The fuck out of here! You serious?
Live. Can't do it live. Got a thing.
Gotcha.
So I will be.
Who's covering it for you?
No one. I'll write it up afterwards.
Gotcha.
Dude, nobody cares.
Oh, Bobby Knuckles.
That's not a knock on Robert Whitaker. When I say nobody cares.
Right.
That's my audience and the place I work. Nobody
Fair
cares.
enough. Yep, got it.
I told my editor I couldn't do it live. I'd write it up afterwards, and he said, "Cool, so I won't put up a live thread." Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for letting me know.
Great.
What's
Moving on.
the sum total of that? Yeah, but speaking of that card, UFC on ABC 6 or 7. You just mentioned it, and I forgot already. It's the prelims start at noon Eastern this Saturday. They are in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia because sweet, sweet Saudi blood money goes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a pretty good card. So if you want a full preview of it, you can listen to me on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I reviewed last night's episode, this last Saturday's UFC event, which was utterly forgettable, apart from a fairly gruesome injury in the main event, which I liked. I'm a sick man. Leave me alone. And kind of forgettable that you can find the full recap over there. I also talk about news, Conor McGregor pulling out of another fight.
Shoot me.
So instead, the new main event for UFC 303 being on 2 weeks' notice, a rematch between Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka, which I am not complaining about in the slightest. Those two maniacs are great for each other. And the whole UFC 303 card got kind of rescheduled, so full discussion of that, not a preview, but just talking about the new fights. And Friday, I was not able to cover SmackDown this last Friday because my power went out, as it did for a giant chunk of the state for a couple of hours. So that was a thing. But this Friday, barring another act of God, I will be covering the fallout from Clash at the Castle. So tune in for any and all of that. And apparently CM Punk will be on SmackDown because God hates me.
That's funny.
That's a man I would be happy to see hit by a bus, just for the record.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
It's a long list. I know.
It's a very long. We know you, Robert.
I need to shorten it. There's a few people I need to let go from that.
You also have a minute left. Go.
So tune in for any and all of that. Again, no live coverage of the UFC this Saturday because of the start time, because they're on earlier and I have a thing Saturday morning, so that's not quite going to work out, but I will write it up after the fact. Podcast, and then, Bike Riders next week, which should be interesting. So we'll talk about Tom Hardy being awesome again, and Austin Butler trying to enter the color of money phase of his attempt to be Tom Cruise.
All right. Check me out. I'm at Mark Radulich on TikTok, and I'm Mark Hind 76 on Instagram. For Zach, always fun to have on the show. For Alexis, love you, even when I tease you.
Love you too, Mark.
Annoy the piss out of you. And for Robert, who I truly do love. I'm very tired. Be well, be safe, and behave.